Okay, fifth grade. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about figurative language, especially because the novel that we're reading right now, Maniac McGee, Jerry Spinelli uses a lot of figurative language. So on the screen we have 5 examples that we're going to be learning about. However, today we're only going to be learning about 3. First, we need to know what figurative language is. So on the screen you can see that it says figurative language is a play on words. That means that it's not intended to mean the actual literal meaning of what it says. And that'll make more sense here when I show you an example. When people say that they get back from the beach and they look like a lobster, or I am a lobster, they don't literally mean that they have turned into a lobster. It doesn't mean that they look in the mirror and they see a lobster. They're just saying that because they probably got sunburn and they are comparing themselves and their coloring, which is red, to that of a lobster. In the second example, it says, in the winter, waiting for the bus stop, your friend says, my fingers are like ice cubes right now. That doesn't mean that their fingers have turned into literally ice cubes. It doesn't mean that you can put their fingers in a cold drink. It just means that their fingers are cold. Maniac McGee uses a lot of examples of figurative language, and we're going to see some here. One thing I just want you guys to know is that you as 5th graders are going to be super good at finding figurative language. This is something that's actually for upper grades, like 4th and 5th graders, and not so much something that would be good for kindergartners and 1st graders, because when they would read, I am a lobster, they might literally believe it. Or my fingers are like ice cubes right now, again, they might literally believe that. So this is kind of a fun thing that you should feel special learning now, because you're at an age where you get it. You know that that's not really what they mean. Simile is our first example. And a simile, as you can see, says that it is a way of describing something by comparing it with something else, using like or as. I really want you to focus on those 2 words, like or as, because that's going to have to be necessary in every single simile example that we find. It has to have the word like or as, and it has to be comparing 2 things. Let's look at an example. First one says, I am as hungry as a horse. I see that word as, and I can see that I'm comparing myself to a horse because we both can get very, very hungry. In the second example, I'm saying you run like a rabbit. I don't mean that you hop. I don't mean that you literally look physically like a rabbit. I probably am just comparing you to a rabbit, because you both run really fast. Rabbits, we know, run fast. So I can compare someone that runs fast to a rabbit for that reason. Again, I see that word like or as. Next example, says he is sneaky as a snake. We know in every story we've ever read that a snake always seems to be the sneaky character. So if I'm comparing someone, he, to a snake, using the word as, it's to show that he is sneaky, and that it's telling us here, I'm comparing him to a snake because they both are sneaky. Next example is a metaphor. And it says the metaphor is a way of describing something by comparing it to something else. Here I see that word comparing again. So a simile was a comparison between 2 things. A metaphor is going to be comparing 2 things. One thing I notice, that's different is that it doesn't need the word like, and it doesn't need the word as. In this first example, it says the girl was a fish in the water. I'm comparing the girl to a fish because they both probably like to swim, and I don't use the word like and I don't use the word as. Next example, the clown was a feather floating away. I'm comparing a clown to a feather, probably because they both don't weigh a lot. I can see here that the balloons are picking up that clown and carrying him away, just like wind would carry a light feather away. So it probably means that they're both very light. Personification is our last example. And this is a figurative language that compares something that is not human as if it had human characteristics. That'll make more sense when we look at these examples. Oh, let me go back for a second. One thing I notice in personification, and this will help you, is that I see the word person in the word personification. That's going to help you with a little hint, knowing that it's when something that's not human has person-like characteristics. Let's look at an example. The flowers danced in the wind. Now I know that only humans are the only people that can actually dance. Flowers don't dance. We don't see them snapping their fingers and doing jazz down the road. But here it looks like the wind must be blowing the flowers, and it makes them look as if they're dancing. So flowers, not human, but they're doing a human-like action. Second example says the friendly gates welcomed us. Now I know that only a person can give you a welcome. They can be the only ones to wave to you and say hello. However, if you look at the gates, it's kind of like they're opening up to you, and it's like they're welcoming you in. They're saying, come through the gates when they open like that. This is my favorite example. The earth coughed and choked in all of the pollution. That doesn't mean that the earth can literally cough and literally choke. It just means that the earth doesn't have the best air quality when there's a lot of pollution in the air. We know that only a human can cough and only a human can choke, and that the earth cannot actually do these things. But we say that to show that the earth doesn't like pollution. Your task today is going to be using your Maniac McGee novel and what we've read so far in the novel. You're going to be finding an example of each one of these figurative language. A simile, a metaphor, and personification. You are going to get to use a partner for this, so you're going to be doing this with another person. The next class we're going to talk about those last two examples of figurative language, which are alliteration and onomatopoeia, but you don't need to worry about those today. So if I show you right now, this is what you're going to be drawing in your Maniac McGee novel notebook. So you're going to need an example of all three, and I do need you to put the page number after it. So after you're finished with this, you guys can get started. Good luck. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.